Let me sit up.
What up, what up, what up, you guys? That's right. You better sit up for VPR FMi. We are live and we're so thrilled to be here. I'm here with my incredible partner, DJ FMi. How are you this fine Thursday, partner?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. It's a little bit rainy outside, but I'm feeling the energy. I'm feeling the vibes.
Definitely. Y'all know the vibes.
Hey, Qiana, I want to kick off our show. We lost a national treasure. I want to give a special shout out to the man in North Carolina that made that mistake with the gas and had it for 69 cents. And he got fired. Yeah, Qiana. So VPR, if you wasn't in tune with some of the news that's going on, a manager at a what is it? Let me get the gas station right. So I know the right gas station looks like Sunoco. No, Shell. A manager at Shell in North Carolina, he accidentally put the gas instead of $6 or $7. He actually put it at 69 cents.
Wow.
And people went crazy.
So let me ask you a question. How long did that last? Because it
lasted quicker than his tender at his job. You know what I mean? Yeah, man. I feel bad. You know what I'm saying? A simple mistake can cost, hundreds and damages to that gas station.
Even millions of dollars. If that were done on a grand level, you know what I mean? Imagine if that was something that was done like digitally and affected a bunch of different
For me, it's just like, when we turn on the news, with the inflation that's going on right now and how it's affecting everything, sometimes when these happen, when a truck flips over in the middle of the road, sometimes you just got to look the other way, VPR, all right?
With a bunch of electronics, you say?
You know what I mean? Oh, this iMac is very costly. I would like to, you know what I'm saying? For that guy that lost his job, I do feel sorry. And, I do send my fucking spirits to him. Hopefully he can figure that out,
That's a hard one to come back from, though, because after that job, right, when you go to apply for the next job, you tell us about the last one and why you don't work there anymore.
He was fired Monday.
You're going to have to remove, attention to detail from your resume, bro.
But shout out to the people that pull up to that gas station, VPR.
Right.
And
I hope you went all the way past F. Okay. Why not?
All the way past F
to G.
VPR, we're trying to bring you some positive energy, and just to remind our older listeners, and just to gauge your age here, Microsoft is officially shutting down Internet Explorer 2 this week.
Wow! After
27 years, so I grew up, with Microsoft and Internet Explorer. Before Safari, before Apple became a thing.
Absolutely.
So, for them closing that down after 27 years, shout out to Internet Explorer. They held it down. They were my first internet searching provider, I would say.
Yeah. Well, my first was actually AOL, which really...
AOL came before that. I'm lying.
Got mail.
It
was AOL everything for a long time. And I even remember, before there was Google, there was AskJeeves.com.
I remember Ask Jeeves.
Okay, but Jeeves wasn't cutting it. He was
not at all. He was on to something though. He was the next thing after the encyclopedia. You know what I mean? If you didn't feel like picking up that encyclopedia, what times I had to go and get an encyclopedia. I had to have the full set. And
my grandmother had the full set, bro.
With a typewriter. That's how old I am. I use typewriter,
bro. The grandmother with the typewriter, and it was that old school joint sewing machine too. You remember the old school sewing machine? I had the built-in case. With what I'm saying? And it was mad heavy. You could barely even pick that thing up. It was 100-something pounds.
I was using a scrub board, Qiana. I'm from Belize, so grandma had me here using a scrub board, scrubbing my clothes to get some of the stains on this metal scrub.
You were going old school.
We live in America. Why you got me doing this? You got a washing machine. I'm looking at the washing machine. Why are you having me doing this? I don't understand. But
it took you that hard work, though, right? Look at you now.
You know what I mean? The backbreaking work that you try to instill in our youth. But speaking about that, the 23rd, is it 23rd or the 26th?
It's the 23rd, definitely.
The 23rd. We're going to be live at the AM/PM Gallery.
Yeah, man.
With the one and only T450, the Pinot Grigio Project. VPR will be hosting the event and actually doing live interviews, and it is an open mic. So the artists that do watch VPR, pay attention and pop up on us June 23rd. We will be at the AM/PM Gallery. We're going to post it to our Instagram so you guys can go and check that out. And we would love to see you guys attend. No,
We're gonna have so much fun, partner. I'm looking forward to it. Shout out to DJ Power who just slid in on the live. I'm checking my watch because I know JD is coming in. I know this conversation is gonna be so
yes, yes, yes. You know what I mean?
good.
VPR, we had JD on, I would say, last month. And in our interview, it touched me in many ways. It gave an insight into another man's shoes, another man's eyes, you know what I mean, in his walk of life, and how his race affects uh, the way he's went forward in his life. And he's been paying attention to his privilege and, you know, addressing it and bringing attention to it. And I think that is needed, especially now, because with the way social media is going, cancel culture, with you can't even stand out the crowd and disagree with someone because you'll be put into a cancel. You know, it's a thing now. So I feel like these conversations are needed here.
Yeah. I think that JD is so refreshing in the fact that he has full-fledged accountability about privilege. And I think that that is the beginning, right, of anyone's ingrained problematic behaviors, right? The more that you act as if it doesn't exist, like let's think about
Mhm.
narcissism, right? Narcissisms will never say that they're narcissistic unless they go through something tremendous enough that it pushes their very foundation, and either they're going to become more of a narcissist, right, or cross over into that level, or they're going to break down and now have to change. Because when you start to acknowledge the fact that it exists and you acknowledge the accountability that, yes, you know what, being white in America is a privilege within itself. The
Yeah.
same way, if you're born of color, you are now at risk legitimately. When you're born not of color, when you're born of the white Caucasian persuasion, as we say, you now, what is it that why can I think of his name? Paul Mooney used to say, you
Okay.
have the reflection, the complexion for the connection. That's, you know, it's just a natural thing. And like the lack of acknowledgement, I think, on such a big scale is really what bothers me, because race is a real thing, right? And we can talk about homophobia, we can talk about a plethora of other things. Like it was so crazy to me how much advocacy came out of like Asian hate based on
Yo,
the corona situation.
oh
And
my
I don't
God.
want anyone to get me wrong before I say this. Let me make this a precursor. I in no way advocate toward hate toward any sort of other culture, race, et cetera, et cetera. Racism in any form is wrong, right?
Yeah.
Racism in this country against Black people particularly has existed since we arrived,
Hmm.
but it's been ignored, or you hear a lot of, oh, you use that as an excuse. But the minute that Asians became a target of hate and people witnessed it, there was a complete outrage. And I'm like, why can't we mirror that outrage for the hate that is inflicted upon our people on a daily basis, on an ongoing basis for hundreds and hundreds of years? That's just my entire thing,
You
right?
know,
Equity for all.
yeah, I just feel like over the years, we looked the other way when it came to our culture and the things that we need here. And like I've had a few conversations previously, and like what I said on the last podcast, we have to be more accountable with ourselves, because as we can see, the world will overlook the issues as far as the Black community is due to our past and how they view us, you know, through a lens.
Hmm.
And when it comes to other walks of life, other cultures, other races, it's dealt with in more of an immediate action. Immediate, oh my gosh, this person has been attacked. Let's run over there and make some laws in order to change that. Let's try to get this. But we don't see that in our community as well. So I just been more preaching more accountability, because
Hmm.
that's where it starts with me, and I could be the change or make a change in my neighborhood or with the next man. So because
Absolutely.
I'm tired of getting the sob story, and I'm tired of people looking at it like we're trying to get handouts. It's not even,
Right.
but it's
Because there's
okay. I'm gonna
accountability
do
in our community as well. There absolutely is. And I think that that is the perfect segue. I just saw JD slide up in here. So let's definitely bring him up to the stage, because this is a conversation we need to have. What up, JD?
What's up? How are you guys doing today?
We're doing great.
That's wonderful. Thank you for having me back. I'm very excited.
Oh, I think we have both very much been looking forward to this. So very, very excited by this conversation. I was just saying how I was sparked by the conversations, the clips that you put up on your Instagram earlier about, having Black friends, and we were talking about your accountability of privilege. So we just want to jump in, for the people that didn't see the first interview. Just give us a little bit about your background and your book, and let's just jump right into it.
All right. So my background is that was the picture of my high school prom. That's the cover of the book. And my parents raised me in a mixed community, but specifically to be raised around Black folks so that I could get something that they never got, that they both got value from their experiences with Black folks, but never really got to be raised in Black community and see what Black culture was like. And so that was important to them. And through that, I wrote a book about my experiences, whether it's just noticing the differences in cultures, whether it's, the welcoming feelings and the love that I received, the privilege that I recognize that I have, and the racism that I witnessed and experienced by just having Black friends. And so I also, in my journey, went to Israel with the African Hebrew Israelites there. My sister lives there now, has a beautiful family with 3 boys raising there. And the what I got to witness as far as what is possible from a Black community taking, control of their own situation, being able to develop a village of peace and just be an example of what humanity can look like. And so that inspired me to do more. And then, being led to white anti-racism work by my son's mother, who pushed me in that direction, and starting to see, which I already knew I had different experiences, but the level of which wanting to do more and not knowing who you're working with and how you should be showing up, and how even progressives with great ideas can still come in with this white savior or white supremacy even kind of outlook to the approach. And so that inspired me to write the book, which includes 7 steps I want white folks to take towards healing the harms of our culture.
And JD, I just want to ask, can I have 3 of those steps? Because I want to save some for the book, and so they could have something to read about. Can I have like 3 of them just so I can?
So step 1 is don't take a step, right? Like, recognize that we have been taught not to learn about other cultures, and so therefore we don't know. And so what we don't know can hurt not only us, but mostly other folks that we are trying to heal in this process with. And recognize that we have some healing to do within ourselves, that takes some time, and don't get just stuck in the denial stage or the stage of shame and guilt. And those things are fine, that they are feelings that you have. They should be natural based on all the harm that our cultures have caused through imperialism and colonialism. But don't stop there. Like, step 3 would be to let some of that go. And step 4 is to appreciate the values of others, specifically the Black culture is what I know the most. And so that's what I talk about, because if you appreciate that value, then subconsciously you'll make different choices and approach things differently, because your values is what's going to drive your approach anyway. And so that's how we're going to get to reparations, is through that.
Amen to that. I mean, and I think that that's applicable for any healing journey, right? There has to be the part of going through the emotion and acknowledging the emotion, which we were even just talking about, acknowledging accountability. If you can't get to that point of acknowledgement, you can't get past that step. You got to kind of take that all in, deal with it, and now move past it. So, I mean, I think that was beautifully, beautifully stated. Tell us about LA. I know that when you left us last time, you were headed to LA for.
So I did. I lived in LA for 15 years, so I was able to see some family and friends. My son lives out there now, and and I got my doctorate out there, so I got to hang out with some of my classmates or cohort mates. So that was beautiful. But I also got to go to the LA Times Book Fest, and it was my first time experiencing it, and it was a big festival. I got a chance to just kind of network with other authors. I saw an author there who had written a book who grew up 5 blocks from where I grew up at. And so we got a chance to talk and hang out, and that was beautiful. I got to see Kelly Rowland, who was promoting her child's book, and give her a book. And, you know, I had met her when I was in the studio with her doing her recording of Dilemma with Nelly. And so she got excited that this book cover had Nelly on it. And so, yeah, it was a good time. It was definitely a great learning experience. And, you know, it was beautiful weather because it was LA, and got to do a lot of networking there that hopefully builds to more momentum.
That's what I like to hear. JD, Globetrot, and VPR. You don't understand the feeling that we had. The first interview, I felt at home like I've known this man for 30 years.
Yeah.
Okay? And it was just all smiles and laughs, and it was a great feeling for what he brought through. My next question to you is, you know what I mean? We turn on our news every day, and you see these headlines with these mass shootings and things like that. How do you feel like we can get past this place now where this is the norm? You know what I'm saying? What is your answer to some of that? I know it's a broad question, but
so my answer is reparations, really, and that sounds kind of like off target, but the healing process and acknowledging and going through that acknowledgement and appreciation for others is going to change us, because, you know, we like to say, oh, guns don't kill people, people kill people. Well, people need to heal so they stop killing people. So, you know, you don't see a difference in you know, if the guns are going to be available, which capitalism says they are, whether you make a law about it or not, I don't think the gun laws is going to do much of anything. It might do some, but it's not going to really deter the factor if you have mental illness embedded in the way you approach society and building these laws. Like, you know, I think it's a mental illness if you're not fixing the streets, but you're investing more in police. So the idea that we have mental illness needs to be addressed, and the only way you address something like that is through a healing process, and reparations is part of that healing process. And for us as low melanated folks, we get to see what actually can exist on the other side of going through the grieving process of the harm that we've caused, and starting to learn and develop new relationships with people that we've been segregated from and been taught fear-based, you know, learning experiences, or to ignore, period, because we don't get taught about them. And so that process in and of itself will bring forth a greater connection. And if we have a greater connection, there's more healing that can be done, right? I mean, like I talk to people all the time, go stick your hand in some dirt. There is an earth out there. I know for New Yorkers, that's very hard to do because y'all got a concrete jungle.
Hey, we have dirt. We have stuff.
You have to put it in your own flower plot. But you know, get reconnected to the earth, because the reconnection to each other and the earth and that healing process is going to bring forth that. And so I think this is the end of a cycle that was vicious and destructive and violent from the beginning. And so not to get too wrapped up in that, because there is still a lot of love and whatnot that's available and going on behind, that's just not getting the press, that's not getting the push. And yes, I definitely want gun violence to stop. I think the ideas of having a gun creates such a false level of courage, because you're not courageous if you're taking somebody's life or causing them harm from a distance. Come beat the crap out of me face to face.
Right.
That's much more courageous than being so far away and being tough and rough because you got a gun, whether it's in a, you know, whether it's in a racist situation or just inside your family or whatever. Handling something with gun is the least courageous thing you can do.
Right. I think, you know, you epitomize courageous. I think courage is truly being able to think outside of your box and put yourself in a position where you're advocating for change, and everyone may not agree with where you're coming from. Like you said, you know, the white savior. There's so many different outlooks and perceptions that could
Right.
come your way based on, you know, what you're discussing and what you want people to understand. And it's like, I'm connecting with you as a person. We've had a lot of the same similar experiences, but once I start delving into the knowledge, I think people now start to negate you, right? Or feel
Right.
like you may have been influenced too much because you've been around Black people too long. So it's like,
Yes.
you have it coming at you from some different sides. Like, I know you have this book, and you're obviously phenomenally, you know, educated and have your firsthand experiences. But I know that you definitely get the pushback. So for me, that's courage, and you still
Right.
stand
But
up and stand strong and push forward, because without this positive change, without the acknowledgement and actually doing something about it, you know, taking it apart and starting all over again, it's going to be a continuous trickle down effect. I wanted to delve into something that you said about not wanting to go too much into all of the violence and aspects, and I respect it, because we want to acknowledge the love, and I respect that on a grand scale. What is portrayed in the media is done so to trigger fear. Can you
right.
tell us what you feel about that and why you think that that's a factor?
Because our values are to put profit first, and right now, the main ways to make profit, or to even just put individualism first, we develop such a society that does that. That starts to trigger all of these next uh, approaches and movements, and then from there you start to justify this is working for us. And so they're just it's in this cycle of being worked on for so long. Fear has been the driving factor. It's what makes my mother watch the news 5 hours in a row, no matter the fact that every hour it's somebody different saying the same exact thing. And you know, but we're fearful, and by doing that, we also stay inside. We're more controllable, and all of these things happen in a desired, controlled situation. And so, the more we can learn, the more we break down those fears. The more we get to experience each other, the more, the less fears we're having. And that's why I think we talked about this last time. And Kiana, you were saying from a working with children standpoint, I know that it's kind of there's a level of ugliness that can take place with people not wanting to go to work and all these businesses kind of suffering because of it. But that ugliness has to get through a breaking point, because these younger generations just aren't willing to go through the same process. Like, it's like when Cat Williams said, don't you know I can see you? I mean, that's what they're experiencing right now. And yes, they're experiencing some other flip sides to having the internet, and a lot of dumb stuff and promotion of ignorance, but that's been promoted. It's all just coming to a head. And so now we're on such this fast-paced track. I think that if we can take ourselves a second to rise above and kind of look at it from not being in the fray, because when you're in the fray, it's all happening fast. But when you rise above and see that it's happening everywhere, it's not just happening to me. And then we can start to see that this is a spiritual thing going on right now that we need to get through and work through to the end. But they're losing their power. So if you're it's like when you're in that argument with your spouse or whatever, or even your child, and you know you're wrong, but if you lose your position, if you admit you're wrong, you feel like this fear of losing your position of the power in this situation. That's what's going on with the powers to be right now. And so I think that there's just this change process is going to be chaotic. And until we get to that place where we go, okay, wait a second, this is what it looks like. Hope my only fear is that they destroy everything humane before, just so that we can't build something humane. But other than that, I can't live on that fear.
Amen to that.
That is true. VPR. You know what I mean? Like you said, you turn on the news. It just hit me. You have 4 different news anchors saying the same coverage, same media. Someone else has passed. This shooting has happened, and it's always being depicted of a certain color. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's the sad part about it. When it comes back to just touch on the shootings, when it's people of different color, we see how they cover them. As far as they'll dive into their back, they'll say he played high school football. They'll say he was the class valedictorian, while Daquan,
Right.
he had one misdemeanor and worked at Walmart with two children, and
Right.
you know, and I just feel like, you know, in the last few years, we've spiraled down that rabbit hole a little bit too much, and like you said, we're getting to this breaking point now, and I don't know what's going to bring us back from it. But I could only pray that something happens, a positive reinforcement of social media comes where we're getting more positive content than this, but in realistically, negative content gets across.
Right.
And that's what we've been trained to have draw our eyes and attention. Like positive seems boring to us, right? Or corny or something to that nature. And until we break through, I don't want to. I'm gonna push back on you, FMi, and just say let's not bounce back. Let's keep pushing it through. I mean, even though it's discomforting and at times very harmful, still we have to break through this to that beautiful side on the flip side of that coin.
And JD, now I watch some of the content that you post on Race for What. I gotta ask you, do you get blowback in your DMs? Do you get blowback from certain people just because you're very understanding towards other cultures? And like these Americans aren't, you know, the biggest.
Well, I'm not popular enough to get blowback yet, but I think one for me, like that first one, especially, and since then, it was really a mental health thing for me, right? I'm working on a training program that with the Anti-Racism Academy, a woman based out of Philadelphia, and I developed a relationship from me reaching out to her through seeing her posts on YouTube, and we're creating some programs that'll start at the top for levels for people that really want to get into anti-racism, and we'll go really in depth into it, to scaling back just for corporate DEI purposes. And so while I was putting that together, the feeling is really this doesn't change to the level in which the healing needs to happen unless we really tear this thing down. And so I was like, oh man, I'm fighting a culture that really I want to break down and build something new with. It's not about just, you know, protesting or whatnot. The thing that's most fearful is what we're doing right now, which is building the new bonds and creating a different culture amongst ourselves. And so
perspectives, right? That a lot of people have closed off for so many years.
And my parents being worried about money and all of these different things, I just was like at this furious breaking point. And when I went on Where Are My Angry White Folks at that rant, that brought forth some healing within me. And you know, and from that, I just do these. I have my social media team or some other people telling me, you need to, you know, stop wearing t-shirts all the time and do it this way. Well, I'll do that when that time's appropriate. But these are my personal videos that I just need to put out and just let folks know who I am. And I can't be afraid based on what corporation might look at and say, nah, we don't want to mess with him because he said the F word or this, whatever. I can't do that. I need to have my own personal release in this process as well.
I agree with that. And I think that especially when it comes to social media, that's a really brilliant strategy because it's social media. And the real way to grow is to actually connect with people, you know? So if you're connecting and they're seeing who you are, you're exposing yourself in these conversations and open questions, and you have this back and forth communication, that's exactly what you're looking to create, right? And then everything just comes together naturally. It's very organic.
So when my mom saw it, she was afraid. She was like, oh my God, you're just so angry right now that nobody's going to hire you. And then my dad was a little less afraid, but definitely was like, yes, you're coming off very angry. And I'm like, yeah, that was the point. I was very angry at that time. And so it's funny because then he went to a synagogue, and someone that he grew up with and my mom grew up with was so excited to talk to him about it. Oh, I can't believe JD did this and Jesse did this, and I shared it with all these folks and this, that, and the other, and they're all like, "Fuck yeah, where has this guy been?" And so, it's been a really positive response from that, because that's what we need to express our true emotions, because when we suppress it, that's how we get these shootings and things of that nature, right? Because it's from all this suppressed, I have to look a certain way, I can't, like, our emotion one day gets pinned against us, but all the rest of our days don't. I mean, so we got to break through that. This was how I was feeling one day. Feelings ebb and flow and swing on pendulums, and so, that's how I was feeling.
You see, and I like that, like the authenticity of it. You know what I mean? And when it comes across in camera, when someone is doing a rant or saying what they feel, that's when people connect to the content, and you can't censor that. That's why we have platforms here like VPR Radio. We've dealt with a fair share of enough entities that we have sponsors and things like that, where we had to say certain things that we could, and when we had our full control. So I get what that means. I do understand what that means, JD.
Oh yeah, because FMi and I, we rant often, don't we, partner?
We have to, because there's so many other podcasts, there's so many other media publications that just view the same information, and here we have a conversation from hip hop to race to so much, and these are needed.
Yeah.
Now,
the much needed conversation sprinkled with all the hip hop.
VPR, this episode is being recorded right now, and on Race for What, he asked a question that caught me, and I just want to repeat it to you, VPR, all the listeners that are in here right now. Do you think people in America often confuse racism with patriotism? When I read that on Instagram, I'm like, wow. I thought of Mega, I've done so much touring where I've been in St. Louis and I've been in the middle of America. I've been in all different parts of America, and I'm just like, patriotism is different in each city. The way they push it, like you go to Texas, they're different. You know what I mean, patriot than we are in New York. You know what I'm saying? And I thought that was a beautiful question that you put online. Definitely.
So one, I got to give a shout out to Nadie. She actually crafted that question based on a blog that I had written, and so for me, just seeing the traits of it, right? It's the level of ignorance that has happened, right? We don't get taught about anything else. We get taught to pledge our allegiance to that flag, though, from the very beginning. Before we get to learn about other cultures, before we're already engulfed in this patriotism. And in the same way, racism is a level of ignorance. It's ignoring other cultures existing. It's not questioning whether we're white supremacists are the best or our patriotism is the best, and everything's always about great. We're the greatest fans, we're the greatest this, we're the greatest that, and it's all that's based on a feeling of a desire. Like, go show me how great you are by challenging it, by learning about other things, by putting yourself in position to be the greatest you can be. But just because you want to be great, and then you start to act upon that without supporting it with just wanting to be your greatest, is what I think is at the foundation of both patriotism and racism, and the fears of being questioned about either one often are very similar.
I completely agree with that. I feel like it's almost as if you acknowledge the fact that racism is deeply ingrained in this country and everything that's happened, then you're anti-American. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you a perfect example of the ignorance. Ignorance is bliss at an all-time high, right? So the principal of Winter School, they were doing, was it Flag? I think it was Flag Day last year. They did some sort of assembly and she was performing, so I came. And he's going in about the flag and the red, the white, and the blue, the red of our soldiers. Like, there was never a mention of racism. He talked about Columbus founding the country. And another, I'm going to say her name, another black teacher, one of the black teachers and I were both looking at each other because I'm standing up, and I'm sure steam was coming out of my ears at this point, JD,
right.
More that he went in about the pride and the patriotism and the red, the white, and the blue. And I was just like, are you kidding me right now with this? Because you're completely removed from the reality, and this is what you're constantly teaching. Like, we're just going to dismiss, we're going to cut off the bottom half of all of this information, the beginning part, and we're just going to sprinkle it with this, and then build that hate into something that's great and American.
Yeah, and like JD said, we were taught the Star Spangled Banner from the beginning.
Yep.
And the ignorance of, oh, we're the best. When I think of being a patriot, I think of someone holding a gun staring up at the flag. You're our flag. And, not of my color. Right. Even though, we fought for years for this country. But that's what I think of. That's ingrained in my head. You know what I mean? And I think that's another issue, too. What's going on in our schools and what's being taught. So many of us parents are and want to have a say in our child's education, where they're teaching still Christopher Columbus and glazing over the fact of, oh, we were slaves. This has happened. Other countries were ran through. We did this. Blood was shed, but we're still the greatest. And until we get to that point, look how they treat the LGBTQ. You see what I'm saying? How they don't want to teach that curriculum. Hey, there's things we need to discuss in this classroom.
But the crazy thing, though, is that they will teach acceptance before they will teach like real racism and the back of this country. I promise you.
Acceptance is easy.
Queens that are working with the Queens Public Library, and they have like drag queen story time. This has been happening for like a few years, right? Because I get all of the emails. I always participate in like library programs, and I was like, that's a bit much. My kids know what drag queens are, but I mean, I think that that's something more that you experience as you go. My kids are curious, so kids are naturally curious. I don't think you have to throw a bunch of things in their face. I think that as questions come, you can let that happen. But what's happening in schools is they are actually teaching what they're teaching on purpose, to just give you that information, negate any other information. But they will absolutely teach about pride and acceptance before they will teach about the fact that racism still exists, and that the country is based on, like you said, colonialism and racism.
Yeah.
And to go off of the kids really want to learn, I was substitute teaching while I was in my doctorate program, and I was all over LA. I mean, from Beverly Hills one day, Watts and Inglewood and other days. And there was a specific spot in Beverly Hills that was an Orthodox Jewish Orthodox Jewish school, and it was from I think almost to high school, or at least through 8th grade. But these students were being taught that they were exceptional because they were the chosen ones, and basically didn't have to listen to teachers, didn't have to respect anybody. I would come in from the 1st graders, the teachers were having problems with them, to the 5th graders. They told me, don't even try, and whatnot. And I mean, these 5th graders were manipulating stories. I'll wait till my dad comes. And I was like, good, I want to talk to your dad. I want him to know how you're behaving. Oh, you just threatened my dad. So then they go run and tell and it was all this level of manipulation and all these different things. The 8th graders standing on them. But when I yelled at them and they started talking about this chosen person, and I snapped and I went, wait a second. First of all, we aren't the chosen people that you've been taught about. Our lineage is from the Greco-Romans that went into this place and took from the people of color that were already there. The original Hebrew Israelites didn't look anything like any of you in this classroom. Right. And their response was either like the 8th graders were like, well, we're still all God's people, right? Yes, we still are all God's people.
Yo.
Or the 5th graders, who were like the worst, sat down and went, wait a second. You can teach me something? And I went, yes, I can teach you something. And they went, now half of them ran off to the principal and I got escorted out. But the fact that they wanted to learn something, wait a second.
You have something I haven't heard.
I mean, there was an interest there. So this whole hiding kids from learning certain things is really much more harmful, and that's what creates this inherent level of ignorance and arrogance about ourselves, right? Whereas if we do expose them to all of these things, yes, there will be a little bit of shame and guilt. Guess what? Kids bounce back faster emotionally and physically than we do as adults. So that now that we got much more to carry, much more weight to carry around. And so, like, that is the saddest part of our culture to me, is that how much we just keep this disconnection and separation and level of arrogance and ignorance in the way we raise ourselves and teach.
I completely agree. And I think that, especially for parents of color, right, this is where accountability comes in on your end. You can't send your child to a school, an American school, and think that they're going to learn about our culture in a positive way and our inventions and the way that we built this country outside of slavery and the existence of other cultures and how they live and et cetera, et cetera. There's such a vast amount of things to learn. Like you said, kids are naturally curious. They want to know things from the time that they're babies. They want to know how it works. They want to know how it came together. And when they start learning, it's like it opens up a whole door of exploration. And like you said, they have vitality. So they bounce back. They're going to learn that information. And they're not going to, I've taught my kids, they don't hate white people because of it, but they are knowledgeable. So after that assembly, my daughter came up to me and was like, well, that was interesting. And we had the real conversation about elements that were missing.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it was no shade to her principal.
Right.
You know, it was just what the facts are. So there needs to be definitely those changes implemented on both sides, especially until we get some changes in our educational system, right? We as parents can't sit back and have an expectation that it's just like thinking your kids are going to learn how to behave at school. No, they need to know how to behave before they get to school, because when they get to school is actually when they'll learn how to misbehave.
Yeah.
Okay, for y'all that don't know.
And Qiana, and I like to tell us the parents, sometimes you got to let the professionals be a professional. You got to let the teachers teach. You know what I mean? And sometimes it comes down to that, and you could go work out with the teacher during the parent-teacher conference if there's an issue, but you got to let that person be a professional. I see a lot of parents that run in there and they want to teach a curriculum, and that's beautiful and that's fine. But that man or that woman has to sit there and they have to do their job also.
Right. So teach your curriculum at home, right? And then make sure that your child knows to respect their teacher and their authority at school. It's a really simple balance, you know, but there has to be accountability on all ends. So I want to talk more about reparations, because this has been an ongoing conversation. And I think a lot of people are in the mind that, like, it's never going to happen. Or you got people who are like, reparations now, right? What do you think is going to be the outcome? Do you think that eventually this country will actually lean toward giving people of color reparations for all of the years of toiling and death?
Well, I would love to say yes, and I'm not going to say no. But
I know, right? I don't want to push you.
If I can sound like Joe Biden, if I can sound like Joe Biden for a second and be as in right. But so there's definitely more conversation about it now than any time I've seen, and I know the state of California just did a big 500-page report on the need for it, and I was just seeing a little kind of podcast interview last night with the person that leads White People for Black Lives out of Los Angeles, and they were on the phone with, they were on the conversation with someone else who I didn't recognize, but there was this talk about how, reparations in California is becoming a greater discussion, which it's so layered, and I don't know how deep or how political they're willing to be in it. I think that it's definitely possible. I just think that we're also fighting those that don't want it, who have a lot of control and power right now and influence, who are willing to destroy rather than give it. And so there's these, and it's a kind of, race again, that we keep coming back to this race, for what? And so, who's going to win? Are we going to have this love and healing process that where low melanated folks can see the value and see that their true enemy is possibly people that look like them, that want to control them and use them as weapons? or can we see the fact that, or are we going to stick with this whiteness because we got a good thing going still for ourselves? And are we going to be willing to, be that spoiled, I'll destroy it if I can't have it, nobody can kind of thing? And so one way or the other, I think that there'll end up being some level of repair. It's when and how that comes about. So I just gonna keep pushing the value of it, and there's a tremendous amount of value for folks that look like me as well in this process, that we could share space and learn so much from other cultures that are actually going to show us how to love and be connected in ways that we haven't experienced yet.
I agree wholeheartedly. And for those, because I've heard so many different angles when it comes to reparations. And, I'm a Libra just like FMi, so we love to look at different perspectives and insights, right? And some people are like, well, what's money going to do? Money's not going to heal. Money's not going to fix. No, absolutely not. It's not going to heal. However, if you look at the fact that we have been positioned in such a place of inequity toward you guys, right? Toward white people, there's no, how do we catch up? We're trying to catch up. We're trying to create generational wealth for people that have had hundreds and hundreds of years of generational wealth because they've had life insurance and they've had homes. When we've been redlined and couldn't buy homes, they bought all of those properties and they passed it down to their son, who passed it down to their son, who passed it down to their son, right? And we didn't have any sort of land to own, right? And so what were we passing down? I mean, the 40 acres and a mule, that really never came to fruition, even with emancipation. Very few, compared to the amount of slaves that there actually were, received the land, after it was all said and done, or received a beginning. You set people free and they have nothing. Still always trying to scrape and build. So it is a beginning process. And like you said, healing is such a journey. There's so much healing that needs to be done. Economically, fear, right? Unlearning fear, which is where racism and hate, that's all where it stems from. And fear comes from not understanding other people, other cultures, other thought processes. And so you hate what you can't understand. And you fear.
And when people ask me what reparations would do, I sit back and I'm just like, well, if my neighbor next to me has to worry about what's in his fridge and he can't eat, and the next neighbor next to me have like 2 acres, that's the difference. That's the difference. He worries about what he's going to eat in the morning. The other, they got it from years of working for it, and I respect it. That same guy has the same 3 jobs that this man has, but and the same 24 hours in a day, but something's off. Something's off. I know accountants that are homeless. What are we talking about right now? You know what I mean? The cost of living, an apartment is $2,000. So if you, so what are we doing here? And that's in New York, and that's all around actually, for a basement. So what I mean, that's what it would help.
Yeah, and when we talk about money, it's way bigger than money. And first of all, we need to get a better understanding of what money is. It was originally a medium for exchange, and that exchange was energy of some type of sort, right? Whether it's an energy of a product that you created or you grew or you whatever, or it's me asking you for your service. Your service is your energy. It's your time. It's your energy. So this medium of exchange is me simply saying, either can you please pass me the ketchup, or how about if I give you $2, will you give me some ketchup? Either way, I just want some ketchup, right? And so this medium of exchange has been twisted and manipulated and bet up, and now it's like a gambling ring, and it's a form of manipulation, and we can just move decimals over and all of these different things. It's not backed by anything. That's why I laugh when they talk about how crypto isn't backed by anything. Well, this is only backed by our fear of losing it. Other than that,
there is that again, JD.
Yeah, I'm gonna run this episode back.
Fear of losing it.
That's it. There was an elder Black man that used to come to the farmers market in LA when we were serving vegan food, and he said if only money had a expiration date, we'd all be in so much better shape. Right. So you can't just hold on to it and hoard it and, oh, this is mine and I'm going to pass this down to my kids. Well, if you're going to pass something down to your kids who didn't earn it, then you can't say anything about anybody getting reparations who didn't earn it or whatever the hell, because they did and their families did, and you stole from them and all of these different things. but it's beyond the money standpoint. It's beyond the check. If I write you the check and I still control everything, you're going to give that back to me. It's set up that way. So that's why we talk about all these athletes and entertainers that lose stuff. One, spiritually, I don't think that Black culture and indigenous and aboriginal cultures have the same desire to control money the same way. So spending it, which is that exchange process, which is real spiritual use of money, is the exchange process, is part of that culture. So trying to manipulate and hold on to it, while it works for this society and we judge whether it's smart or not, it's really not spiritually connected to anything. And so the idea that money, it's not about money, it's about being able to control your own destiny like we can. And so that's part of it, right? We can change the money by changing the evaluation of your home. We can change the money by subsidizing and giving tax breaks. We can change positions, all kind of different ways to manipulate the value of money. But when we let go of that control and give space to have communities be able to design themselves and interact amongst themselves and build how they want to, that is what real reparations looks like. Yes, absolutely, we need to write checks or whatnot, but that check has to have real value to it, and that real value comes in the ability to maneuver and move in a way that is socially responsible and can build something.
That's a fact. We don't want a million people running out buying TVs and Lambos nowadays. We got the housing and banking.
The Dave Chappelle reparations. Did you guys ever see that?
Yeah. I'm just like, we got to buy all the stores, the alcohol stores, the Chinese stores. We got to buy them back.
Right. We should own them anyway, right?
I mean, at this point,
it only makes perfect sense.
But yeah, JD, what upcoming projects do you have coming up before we wrap it up and get out of here? So everybody can know where to find you.
So the training program is what I'm working on the most right now, because that builds some legs. It's not just about, hey, buy my book and listen to me speak. I'm really wanting to go into colleges, even high schools, but I want to design it, and this hasn't even been put much more thought into it than what I'm telling you now. But I want to design an experience that's different, right? I don't want to come in, speak about these things, say, give me my check and I'm out of here. And because then I'm the experience is the same. And once again, you're not doing it that makes you feel good. I do know that there will be some check mark things up. I'm not racist anymore, but there's also going to be some difference. And that's what I want. And I don't want to do this just for covering the bills. I want to do this because I want change. So I need to do it in a way that's different if I want to bring forth that. And that's what I'm focused on, what that's going to look like right now.
Beautiful. Well, I can't wait to see that program in action, and we will definitely, promote it here. Do you have any situations coming up? Are you traveling anywhere? Any book tours or anything else exciting that you might have?
Well, with a friend of mine and a brother of mine that I met through the African Hebrew Israelites, who developed a ginger-based drink called Ginger Surprise. For 18 years or plus, maybe even more, but the 18 years that I've known him, he's been struggling to get this off the ground and doing it the right way, with keeping the integrity of it and keeping a partnership, finding a partnership that works for him. And he's not like the business person. He's very creative and very loving guy. And it appears that we finally found the right partner for him, financial partner. And we have a beautiful publicist that's out there acting as an agent for him and helping to build this. So within the next month or so, this should be really started. And from that, there's a healthy drink that also could provide me some opportunity that helps me to build this from a cash flow standpoint.
Well, so we love to hear it. We love to hear it. We love your message. We want to just, I want to encourage you to just keep going.
Please.
We'll have conversations for sure behind the scenes, any way that we can get involved and help. I mean, your energy is amazing, your knowledge. We never have enough time to go.
Yes.
At all, man. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to getting out to New York and spending some time face to face
Yeah.
Absolutely.
and seeing Vegas face to face so that we can
We gotta
Yeah,
get you in the studio, man. Just so we can sit down, we can have
Yeah.
our wine, and we can get our fruits the way
You know
VP
that's
does
the
it,
vibe.
yeah.
and we can set the tone here and create some real change. Race for what, guys? We have spent time with JD Mass, man. It is always a pleasure having him on this platform here.
Always.
Thank you for being on the show today, man.
But thank you guys.
Thank you,
Y'all
Jay.
have a beautiful
Be
day.
blessed. You
You
too.
man.
All right.
Ciao.
Man, Thursdays are just a VPR. When we have these conversations about race and inclusion, it brings a smile to my face for the fact that we're touching on it from the schools. When we have JD in these schools, when he's running around and giving these lectures and actually working with the people that are going to bring about these changes, the young minds that will do that. That's what I love. You know what I mean? And we need to give more platforms to people like him. Whereas, you know, we do give it here for rappers, we give it here for entrepreneurs, but JD, man, that man is dope. That man is dope.
He is dope. He's definitely dope. I mean, I have such an amount of respect, and shout out to Vince, aka Vegas, who connected us, because that was really dope. He knew that coming on VPR was just
hey man, I need to come to the store and get some coffee, man.
I love it. I know, right? We need to definitely pop out and see him and Samri. So shout out to everybody that watched here today. God willing, we will be back next week. I have a lot going on tonight. I got to head to this graduation, so I'm going to run up out of here. But always love to have you guys here with us. And FMi, make sure you get some rest, man. I know you're running and working nonstop, but, reset it.
And VPR, before we get out of here, June 23rd, make sure y'all pop out on us, AM, PM Gallery. I'm going to be doing my things on the ones and twos. Qiana will be the host with the most, running this show, 2450, the Pinot Grigio Project. There's so many other sponsors and factors going into it. Pull up on us. It's open mic. I can't wait to see y'all.
Yeah, we're going to have a blast. So you guys stay blessed, okay? Have a wonderful day. Keep smiling. And remember, just stay dope. Don't let anybody break that energy, okay? And we'll see you next week.
Later, guys.